Hello, campus. Welcome to another amazing course in the Monagri ABCD Bootcamp. I hope we all know what ABCD stands for. It stands for Anybody Can Dev. It is our strong belief that anybody can be a developer. That's why we started this program in the first place. Now, we have gone through the HTML course. It was a wonderful experience for me personally. And from the feedback I got from you guys in our last roundtable, I understand it was a wonderful experience for you too. However, while some of you have shared your course and your score in the final quiz, I understand that some of you have not even taken the final quiz at all. Please do so. And some of you that shared your score and you got more than 70%, well done. I give you 2 thumbs up. Wonderful. You guys have done great. But some of you that scored less than 50%, I will advise you to go back to the course, the chapters, watch the videos again, and then practice the quizzes again. Alright, let's get to it. Today we'll be talking about a very fascinating concept called CSS. You know, when I told you guys that website development is like building a house. When you build a house, you kind of build it with bricks, and then when you complete it with bricks, it feels like it's completed, but until it's painted, it's not really a very good house. It's not really a very good house. Now, if HTML is the builder, like the HTMLs are the brick, then CSS is the paint that paints that brick, that makes the house look beautiful. Now let's get to it. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. It is a computer language for beautifying your website. Remember our bricklayer analogy? Imagine a just completed building is wonderful, but you cannot live in it. You need to smoothen it with cement, of course, and then paint it. HTML will give you the completed building, but CSS will beautify it for you. Now we have talked about that, but where does CSS stay? When I taught you HTML, I told you that to create an HTML file, you need to create a file called something.html. That something can be anything, depending on what you want to call it, but it has to end with .html. But the question is, where does CSS stay? Now, I'm happy to inform you that CSS can stay in multiple places. Recall that I said that HTML code, okay, I've said this already. Now, let's talk about the places where you write your CSS, because where you put your CSS is quite important, because you need to put it in the right place. But there are numerous places you can put your CSS. We'll be exploring, I think, 4. Let's just get to it. First, you can put your CSS in a style tag. Remember I told you that the head tag hosts things that tell the website how to build your tells the browser how to build your website. There's a special tag that stays in your head tag called the style tag. Now, you can put your CSS code inside this style tag and it will have effect. That's wonderful. This way, this method is not common, as the style cannot be reused in other HTML file. Remember I showed you a something called link then when we were learning HTML, that you can use the link tag to link yourself to an external CSS file. The interesting thing about the link tag is that multiple HTML files, multiple web pages can share the same CSS file, which makes your website less voluminous, which reduces the size and therefore reduces the hosting cost, because you have to pay hosting providers to host your website. We'll get to that in the next week, I think. Now, the issue with this first method is that the style cannot be reused in other HTML file. Another way you can set your CSS file is by writing it in line with the tag you want to style. So alternatively, you can write your CSS code in line with the specific tag you want to style. Remember tag properties? Well, there's this property called style, such that when you write a tag like the div tag, you can just include a property called style and just put your CSS there. It will work. This method is used when a tag needs to be specially styled. You will understand this more in depth when we get to this chapter. Now, inside a .css file, you can also write your CSS file inside a .css file. That's the third method. So, as you created an index.html file, you can create an index.css file and then put your CSS code inside that CSS file. And then when you do that, you finally need to link it with the link tag. I think we should just get into that straight away. So, I don't just stop. Let's go ahead and launch VS Code. Now, I'm going to create the CSS folder. I'm just going to call that with 2, and then I'll create the index.html folder, the index.html file, So to make work easier for me, let me just write with 2/index.html. Cool. So I've been able to create the week2 file with the index.html file installed. And I just need to add the boilerplate. The necessary set of things. I think you guys still remember what those things are. The first one is going to be doc type. Then you need to include the HTML tag, and then we need to include the head tag. Finally, we need to include the body tag. Yes, good. So, like I said, the first way is for you to create a style tag and then include the style inside the style tag. The second way is for you to create it's for you to write it in line with the tag. Like, let's create a tag, for example, this div tag. Now let's call the class of this tag C. You can call it anything. But I want to show you guys a shorthand. There are a lot of shorthand in HTML and CSS. Shorthands allow you to write code faster. So instead of typing that, I can just say div.c, and it will just show me to write it out for me. So I want to style this C. I want to make it big. Let's save this file. Let me turn on autosave because of you guys. So come here and turn on autosave. Then right click on this, copy the path, and then go to your browser. Yes, and go ahead and enter this, and voila, we have this. Of course you can't see anything because our div doesn't have a width, doesn't have an height. We don't know how tall it should be or how wide it should be. Don't worry, you'll learn more about this width and height stuff. So the first method is to write your style inside this style tag. So let's identify this C. How do you identify a class again? You start with a dot C. Then you come here, and then you come and say width 100 pixels, height. Let's give it 100 pixels. Don't worry, you learn about these things shortly. I mean, it's a well-detailed course. And then let's give it a background color of maybe blue. And then let's go back to our code. And refresh. And then we have our container here. Now, the same way you've been able to write it here, I can delete this and then go back. You see there's nothing there again. So let's go to the second method of styling in line with the tag. So you can also come here and write style, and then put that width stuff again, and then put that height stuff again, and then put the background color, and then you go back to your code, and voila, you have this again. So let's go back to, let's look at the third method of styling again, which is creating a .css file. So inside the same folder, let's create an index.css file and paste that same code there. So let's go and link it. So you have to come here and create a link tag, and then identify your index.css file. So when we go back again, it is showing the box, which is kind of great. Alright, let's move on, please. So inside the index.css file, now I've told you where you can put your code, the index.css file in line with the tag, and then inside the style tag. Now let's see how you actually write your CSS. Now let's say you want to ask a painter to paint a particular brick in a house you have just completed. Do you just say, hey man, go and paint the brick I'm imagining in my mind, even though you have absolutely no idea where it is? I mean, how is he supposed to know what you're asking him to paint? Well, you need a way to identify the said brick to the painter. Likewise, CSS needs a way to identify the tag that is styling. In the last course, we discussed some tag properties called identifiers. Now, I told you that there are two types of identifier: the ID and the class. In CSS, there are actually three ways to identify a tag for styling. The first one is to use the class property. This is common amongst developers. I mean, you just saw me use it. I called the div class C, and I styled that class. Look at it here. Alright, yeah. This is common amongst developers. You can identify a tag with its class name that you have assigned to it. For example, input class appendecor, and we come here and we write our style. Alright, so this is the style dot. When you identify something with the class, it needs to start with a dot. to start a tag with a class, we need to start with a dot. Because we start Akindeko, any tag or any tag with this particular class name will have the same style that we set to that. Let me show you what I mean by that. Now, if you look at this, we have linked the index.css file to us. For the sake of okay, you know what? Let's just, I hope you guys are not confused. There are three ways to put your styling. Either you style inline, or you style in a style tag, or you style in a separate file and link yourself to that file. We'll be using the third method for now, please. There are some places we will switch between these methods. Now, let's say I want to like copy this particular guy. Now remember, we styled this guy. We didn't style this guy. But because we call this guy class C, and when we styled our CSS, our rule was that it should, anybody having a class of C, whenever you see dot, it means class. Anybody having a class of C should have this particular style. So if you go back to our code and refresh, you see that the three of them have this style. So you can't differentiate them. Well, to differentiate them, let's just add a margin. Don't worry, you will know what all this thing means shortly. I promise you that. Alright then, so you have been able to see them well now. Alright, you can also use the ID property. The same analogy applies. Just as we use the class, you can use ID. The ID system is common within the programming language, yes. Most developers prefer to use class, but the programming language itself prefers ID. It's not as if the programming language is telling you not to use class. But for example, when we wanted to set a label for our input tag, remember what it asks us in that for tag. Remember, the label had a for property. That for, we needed to like specify the ID of the input tag. That's telling you that the system usually just prefers ID. It's not a really important point like that. But developers use ID when it is required by the programming language, or when they want to style a particular tag in a group of tags having the same class name. For example, let me show you something. Look at this stuff we just created. We have three div tags having the same class name. If we go back to the browser and we refresh, you see that they have the same properties. But let's assume we want to change this second guy, this middle guy, we want to change it to yellow. How will we change it? Because we have set class, we cannot change the class. We want it to still have the property of the class that we set here. Let me go ahead and close all of that tabs and then open this one. We want him to have this property, but we want the background color to be different. One way we can use this is to use the ID. Now, because they all have the same class, we can use ID. We just set the ID and let's call the ID M. So you come here and style the ID. To style the ID, you start with hash. Then you write your M and then you put your new background color. And let's call it like yellow, I think. And then we can go back there, refresh, and it has the yellow stuff. So that's another usefulness of that ID. So you can use ID and class. They are not the same thing. You can use them independently. Alright then, so let's move on. In the example above, let's just move on. To start an ID, we start with hash. Tags with the same ID will share the same ID style. So you should know that. So if the same way tags with the same class will share a style, that's the same way tags with the same ID will share a style. So if I were to copy this ID and bring it to the second guy, you will see that second guy will be yellow too. Alright then. So yes. Okay. Alright then. So let's see this example here. I had H1 tag Mona Lisa because the class name of all these tags is Mona Lisa, but I set a particular guy to have an ID of color text. So when I style Mona Lisa, they all share the same 16px, but because color text has a color blue, out of everybody is going to be the one that will be colored blue. So in the example, we made Monagri text blue by styling its ID. Yeah, this is it. Monagri text. This Monagri text, we style this ID color text. This is where we style the ID color text and we made the color blue. However, it will still have the font size of 16px as set by styling its class name. Alright, if you look at this example here, we have the class Mona Lisa, the ID color text, and then the ID color text. But developers here will have the color we set to that particular ID, which is color blue, but it won't have this font size because it doesn't have a class. This class of Mona Lisa, it doesn't have it. It's not with it. But there's a third way to identify tags when we style. and that way is to style the tag directly. This is not a common method because it's not very that interesting. I'll show you why in a bit. Let's say you have a couple of H2 tags in a code such as this. We live in a twilight world, there are no friends that does. We live in a twilight world, there are no friends that does. And then you wrote all this, and then all of a sudden you have been coding for the past 24 hours. And then when you finish coding, you just realize that I'm supposed to set all the H2 tags to be to have a color of like some kind of to have a different color, but I forgot to. How can I do that? Well, there's a way to do that in CSS. Because you don't want to start writing a class name, start writing class and it's just going to take a long time for you to write all that kind of thing in a very huge file. Let's assume your code is more than this, it's very long. So there's a way to just skip all that. It's called by using tag. You can style with the tag. So you just write the tag name, and then you just write the styling you want to apply to that tag. But the issue with this is that to style by tag, you don't need the dot or you don't need the hash. Just put the tag name there. Just put the tag name there. However, be careful with this method because it will style all the H2 tag in your file, even when you don't want it. Even when you don't want it to style a particular H2 tag. Let me show you an example, just to like clear things up. Now let's assume we have like let's assume we are creating some kind of a text. I'm just going to like copy this and create another example 2.html. Alright then, let's get rid of this. So let's assume we write a couple of text, right? H1, or let's create a div, and then let's write the H3. I am a man of valor, and then you just come here and you just like copy these old stuffs, and then you just paste it here, and then you come here and say to build or not to build. And then this one is actually an H2 tag. Now you realize that, let's say this code is a lot and you don't want to be adding class name to everybody or ID to everybody, and you want to make all H3 tag blue. Now let's just run this. Let's copy the file path and just go and run it. Let's come here. No, let's just create a new stuff. And this is it. But we want to make all the H3 tag blue. So all the H3 tag blue. So you can just come here and type H3 and then put this and just put like color and make it blue. And go back to your code. When you refresh, you can see everybody is blue. Now this is fine, but there are issues with it. Let's assume there is an H3 tag that is not inside the div tag. Let's assume you come here and you write like H3. Hello campus, and then you come here and you put this. You realize that hello campus is also blue, but that's not actually what you want. You only wanted to make these people blue, and then it makes them blue. That's because this one is also an H3 tag, and you told the CSS that the rule is that style everybody that has an H3 tag. So that's the problem with styling with tag. However, there's a way to solve this. You can avoid this by using targeted styling, and that's what I'm calling it. Targeted styling, or you can create a custom tag and style it. For example, I create the Daniel tag and I style the Daniel tag, and anybody bearing Daniel tag will have a color of cyan. Alright, let's explore what targeted styling is. You have been working on that awesome website, and all of a sudden you do this. Okay. Alright then. You could style the H2 tag just as we did then, but that will make all the H2 tag red. To solve this, you can use targeted styling. Let's say you want to paint the right wall of every room in the third floor of your 50-story building. You see, that's a very accurate description. First, you can tell the painter this, and you will know what you want him to do. You told him that okay, you have a 50-story building. He should go to the third floor. He should paint the right wall. He has his instruction, and then that way he's going to paint the right set of things. CSS can take this kind of command too. For example, let's say your code looks like this. You realize that there's a pattern in this code. In the enclosure of body, there's a tag like a div. There's There's a div, and all these divs to have like another div in it, and that div has an h2. But then there's an h2 that is not here. Now let me go ahead and copy this just for the sake of explanation. And then let me go ahead and create another example. Just paste this here. Oh, let's not do that. Let's just create the standard doctype.html. Let's include the HTML stuff so that we'll just be able to like style it inside. It makes our work so much easier. And then just put our body here. And let's like copy this part and then go back to this guy. Then put it here. And then we have all this, which is cool. Now let's go back to our code. Now you see that, let's assume we have a code like this. Now let's say we want to style the text, attention is all you need. Let's go to the browser. This is the only text we want to style. Let's assume we want to style this text, attention, and you want to style the just do it text, and you want to style the tabula rasa text. What's the relationship with all of them? You realize that attention is all you need, just do it, and tabula rasa are all h2 tags. That's one. They all live in a div. That's two. And their div lives in another div. That's three. And their div lives in the body. So you can target that styling by saying body, then tell him where to go next, div, then tell him where to go next, div, then tell him where to go next, h2. The same way you can tell the man to go and paint the right wall of every room in the 3rd floor of your 50-story building. That's the way you can tell CSS to go and style the h2 tag that is inside the div tag, that is inside the div tag, that is inside the body tag. So you see what I did here. First start with the topmost, the parent, body, parent, body, div, parent, div, and then the child, h2. And then you can style this. So let's copy this and take it to our code. Let's go ahead and, this is our guy here. So we'll put this here. Let me just correct the indentation there. Alright then, so let's go back to our code and refresh. You can see it's styled just the people we need it to style. So let's go back to our course material. But note, there is one thing you need to note though. Targeted styling should be precise, or else you might not get what you want. Let's see some example. For instance, let's say we use this particular style, body h2. Let's see what it will produce now before we even do anything. Let's remove this stuff and then go back to the stuff. You can see he styled everybody. Why did he style everybody? It's not an error. He actually did what you asked him. But let's ask ourselves the question, what did we ask him actually? He styled everybody. This is because your target was vague. It wasn't precise. You said, okay, Mr. CSS, style every h2 tag that is inside a body tag. You specify the parent, you specify the child. Let's go back to our code. This is the body tag. You will see that all the h2 tags are actually inside the body tag. That's why he styled every one of them. So it's actually following your rule, right? So it's actually doing the right thing. However, let's look at another example. Let's say you say body div h2. Let's go and see that. So we leave just one div, not two divs. Let's see. He styled everybody except Mr. Watson. Come here, I want to see you. He styled everybody except them. Why? Let's see. Did he obey our rule? Let's see. Don't forget, the first thing is the like great grandparent, then you go all the way to the child. That's the hierarchy. And also you put space between each parent and the child. Just one space, or you can do with more than one space. It's just space you need to put between them, not any other thing. So body, let's look at the body. Right, body, okay, right. Div, look at the divs. These are the divs, div, and div, and then h2. Yeah, he did the right thing. He didn't style this guy because this h2 is not inside any div. Who is the parent of the h2? The parent is body, so it's not inside any div. So it's right to actually do what he did. Let's go back to our course material. Yes. Now let's targeted styling. The same way you do targeted styling with tags, you can also do targeted styling with class and IDs too. So let's look at some example. I'm just going to create another example. I'm just going to copy this boilerplate to my to my clipboard, so I don't have to like type it every single time I want to create an example. It's quite annoying. Alright then, so let me just copy that, save it to my clipboard. So let's copy the example. We intend to put it right here. Alright then, so you can see this div as a class of Monday. So let's go back to our course material. Now to style you maniacs, we want to style this text from probably Planet of Apes. You maniacs, we want to style that particular text. Now let's guess, how do you think we're going to style this text? Let's locate the text. We just want to style this guy only. How do you think we can style it? Let's explore some options. This CSS one says we should style .monday, .tuesday, .wednesday. They said if we do that, we'll style only that text. Let's see if it's true. Who is Monday? This guy. But this guy too is also Monday. This guy too is also Monday. Then he said, okay, he said to style all you maniacs. So this is one you maniacs here. This is another you maniacs here. This is another you maniacs here. So he said we should style .monday, .tuesday, .wednesday. So let's see. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Oh, so I think it will work. And then, but will it style this Wednesday? It won't. Why? Because this H2's parent is Monday. So to style Wednesday, we will actually have to say Monday, Wednesday, not Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is a precise styling. Let's not talk. Let's just go and see if it is going to work. So let's go all the way to our style.cs, our style tag, and include this. And let's see how that turns out. I think we're in example 4 now. So let's go ahead and create a new tab. So you can see that I styled the you maniacs test. Well, that is fine. That is fine. So let's go back to our test. It gave us another option. It said instead of styling this, we can also style .tuesday, .wednesday, and it said it probably work. Let's see if it will work. Let's see if it will work. Let's just copy this tag. Yes, we don't need to copy. Let's just go and delete the Monday tag. Yes, it worked. So why did it work? Let's go and see why it worked. We told him that he should look for Tuesday, and these are all Tuesday. Then he should look for Wednesday, and these are all Wednesday, and should style it. But it won't style this Wednesday because this Wednesday is not inside the Tuesday. I hope you understand that. And then the third option, he said we should just style Wednesday. So let's go and see. If we just style Wednesday, will it work? That's the question. Will it work? So let's go and see what will happen. No, it styled. Wednesday didn't only style you maniacs, it also styled Dragon. And then let's see why he did that. Well, we only told him to style everybody that is Wednesday, and this guy too is also Wednesday. So our targeting wasn't really precise. So he did what we asked him to do. So it's actually correct, but it's not what we desire. You can call that a bug. And let's see the fourth one. Yeah, he said the right ones are CSS1 and CSS2. CSS3 is wrong because it will also style Dragon. CSS4 is wrong because it will only style the first Humaniac. Oh, let's see that. So let's see this guy, CSS4, and just like bring him here. Alright then. Oh yeah, it only styled the first one. Why? Because we told him to look for Monday, then go inside Monday to Tuesday, and then style the person with the ID called special. And this is the only guy with ID called special. This guy doesn't have ID called special. This guy doesn't have ID called special. So I hope you understand that. Alright, let's move to multi-styling. I told you that if you want to do targeted styling, you use space. For multi-styling, you use comma. I will show you now. Let's say you have something like this. This. I think we should call this example 5 now. So let's come here and create an example 5. And then let me get my clipboard back. So let's put this guy here. And then let's say we add a CSS, something like this. And you want them to have the same style. Let's say you want this me, you, us to have the same style. You can see that me is a class, you is a class, us is an ID. So let's see that. So let's assume we want them to have the same style. This is how we write them. We write me.you #us. I think you know why we use #, which is this. Now, this is not targeted styling. No. In targeted styling, we use space between them. But in multi-styling, we use what? Comma. You can see the comma we are putting this there. So we are telling you that do this. This what we just did here is the same thing as if we wrote something like this. It's the same thing if you write something like this. But we now make this one like you. Then we make this one like us. So it's the same thing. But since they have the same style, we just try to group them together. But we must separate them with comma, which is this. Alright, we won't see it in. Let's see. Let's go to the browser. Take for an example 5. Well, you won't see anything because their background is not set yet, so we didn't add the color to them. Don't worry, we'll get to that, those background stuff. But let's just use this for now. Alright, then you can see this, but they're not separated because there's no margin between them. Alright then. Alright, so let's continue, please. Now, separate each class with a comma, and then remember that targeted styling there is no comma, only space. Now let's talk about another point, precedence. Precedence means priority. There are situations where CSS will take a style over another style for a tag, depending on where and how the style is written. What is basically saying is that you guys are probably know what I mean. You know what I mean by priority. You can define multiple styles for a particular tag, but then there's a way CSS will choose the one it wants, like depending on how you write it. So let's go over the rules. First of all, inline CSS we always override CSS that is inside the style tag or inside the file. Let me prove it to you. Let's call that example 6. So let's say we included this, but let's say we want to include like a h1 tag. I am the man or something like that. So we have this I am the man stuff. Let's close all that open. Then let's copy the path to this guy. Let's go to our browser. Let's paste the part here. And you have I am the man. But let's say we want to set there are three ways to start. We can also create a ex6.html. Let's use this CSS file. I told you one of the advantages of the link is that you can use a CSS file in multiple HTML file. So let's use this particular CSS file and just include the link tag, link ourselves to it, and then it's going to be text of CSS. Let's come here and probably like put some kind of a border or style it out. You can see how you style in CSS. Don't worry, we'll get to it. I comment it out. See how we commented in CSS. If you're not sure how to comment in a particular language, just put your stuff, highlight what you want to comment, and then just press Ctrl / and then you have something like this. It will comment it out for you. Alright then. So let's say we give this guy a class, or maybe HM. Let's call it HM, and then let's start at HM. We start it from here. We say the color should be what blue. Okay. So let's come here, and then the color is blue, which is a sign. But let's assume we came here and start the same guy again. .hm. But inside the style tag, we didn't call it blue. We call it something else. We did color brown. You see, the style that is inside the CSS file took precedence over the style that's inside the style tag. Let me just do a little bit of a thing to see where we stand on that. Okay, I think, do you notice what I just did? You know what the link stuff did? When I put the link above the style tag, like when I put the style after the link, it shows the style that is inside the style tag. But when we put this link after the style, it shows the one that is inside the link tag. Don't worry, we'll get to this shortly. There is another rule that will explain what just happened here. Alright, so but the first rule we're exploring is that the inline CSS will override CSS in every other place. So let's go ahead and see this style, which is blue. So let's come here and set a particular style and say color should be what? Let's say yellow. Your yellow green. So let's come here and see. You can see it's yellow green. So that's to tell you that the style you set in the tag itself will override the style everywhere else. So that's the rule number 1. Rule number 2. A more specific targeted style overrides less specific one. Well, let me explain that to you. So let's copy this and then replace this, and then come back and then look at the CSS and copy all the CSS here, and then let's bring it here. Now you can see that this guy is less well targeted than this guy. Like we are trying to style the cont 4, right? But this guy doesn't really target it well. It's just like saying cont 1, this is less targeting, but this is the highest level of targeting because it's very precise from the parent all the way to the child. So I think my name is Peter Parker should be magenta. Exactly, my name is Peter Parker is magenta, so it obeys the rule. Rule number 3: styles that appear later in the code will override earlier rules if both have the same specific, that is the targeting. Okay, I will explain that to you. So let's go back to our previous stuff of HN, and then let's remove the inline style. Now let's say we have this HN defined, and let me remove this link first. I'll show you something about the link later. We set the color to brown. Let's go to the stuff. You see it's still brown, but if we have to come here and say .hm, I will set the color again to something else. Let's say we set the color to like a green. It should be green now. Awesome. So go back to the rule. The rule says that styles that like appear later in the code, a style that comes after a particular style, CSS will choose that style that comes after. The latest style is what it will choose. That's after all other rules are not applicable. Okay. But then you will not be wondering, let me answer the previous question of why this link, in the CSS file, we told him to make HM blue. So when we go to the browser, HM is actually blue. It's because of that same rule. Link is just as if you bring whatever is here and you bring it here. So that means this HM of blue came after this HM of brown. That's why it's showing here like this. Alright. So number 4, a CSS statement with important property will always take precedence. So let me show you something. Let's take this P tag, this P HTML tag. Let's bring in, let's come and replace here. And then let's bring all this CSS tag. Yeah. Now, normally you would expect that the tag that comes last, which is the color, given it the color of red and the font size of 20, is what will be used. But then this particular stuff important. Whenever you want a particular CSS property to take precedence over another, just include this important stuff. So you can see in the color, I told him that yellow is the most important, so you should choose yellow. In the font, I told you to choose 18px, even though normally by rule 3 it's supposed to take these two. So it should be yellow and 18 pixels. So let's go ahead and see that. Awesome. It's yellow and 18 pixels. Alright then. There are other rules for precedence, such as when you hover or you click, and then we'll get to them as we code. Now that you know the rules, let's do this. Alright, this has been the rules and the things you need to note in CSS. I hope you guys love this. Daniel is